Project development occurs in tiny as well as huge churches. Sometimes we even get it right, but we must remember who we are and for whom we work. This is the Practicing Christian, and our report this week is on Christian project management. So many of the things that we do in or at our churches are done just as we would do so elsewhere, making coffee, getting out mailings, signing new employees up, etc. It's easy for us to think that if we have some project that we're excited about and want to get started on, we might as well get busy doing things, just as we would at the office or the school or warehouse. And indeed, much of it is quite like what we do in the secular world, but not all of it. For one thing, we're not simply employees when we're on godly projects. That means that if we're taken off part of the project or fired or get irritated and quit, we may have a host of different feelings than if it happened not in a Christian project, but at a beer distribution company. First of all, it's often difficult to tell your brother Christian that he's making a mess of documents he's working with. Oh, what to do in a situation like this? Practicing Christians may wish to take portrait photographs of everyone in the project before it begins. It's an act of saying, you're important. We all know we are, but we need reminders. And with the closeness of the Christian walk, where we're now working, we're reminded of our relationship with one another through Christ. It can lead us to better training and deeper counseling on the job when that brother is messing up. He is not expendable. Bad relations can be remembered for decades. Experience counts, but don't count on it. Men who have experience with the process to be used in your new project can be valuable. That goes for projects ranging from reorganizing the youth groups or building a new hospital. But if Ned did this kind of work excellently, perhaps 13 years ago, can you rely on him to do it well today? This goes for equipment as well. Textbooks, computers, metallic coatings, and all the other things you'll work with are superseded by newer versions. Are you and your people ready for that to happen? Or do you and they prefer doing it, quote, the way my people did it back in the 60s, close quote. This applies to major goals or processes as well as small-scale work. Does the church really need to get a new organ? Or could it have this old one rebuilt instead? Or is there a growing number of people who want their music to come from other sources? Sunday schools began in the 1700s, you may know, to teach British children, child laborers in the mines and the mills, reading, writing, arithmetic, and religion. Those are the 4 R's. As it came to the U.S., it dropped 3 of these and just kept the religion. Churches grew to have Sunday school class at the same time as worship was held, which discouraged growing young men and women from being at worship. Today, most churches have completely redone Sunday school worship and class times to recapture the youth population. Meanwhile, some churches still continue to hold a 19th century service, sending the kids apart for Sunday school. If your new project has to do with educational or liturgical work, you may have directions from on high, we mean in the hierarchy of the church, to access as to how you will do it. Yet it's surprising how often people are open to new ideas and processes, and it could be people in your hierarchy as well, especially if you appeal to their best interests. Quote, "That won't work in our church, let me tell you," close quote, gets poorer results than, quote, "We're trying to cut a variation that you might want to see. Can we count on you for our demonstration on the 13th? Or we may be able to help some other churches with what we're doing," close quote. Don't try to run roughshod over other people. Look like you're helping and doing something good. Theological education began shortly after Jesus' resurrection. Texts of what he and the apostles said and did were scarce and uncommon for years. Before printing existed, a church's one Bible, if they had that many, was often chained to the pulpit for fear of theft. New clergy learned from sitting in classes and reading until the modern era. Students now can travel by car, use podcasts, audiobooks, streaming, and learn in far different ways. The churches are still trying to figure out what's the best means for a congregation's deep and powerful education and training experience. The prayer lists, written or oral, that most churches use on Sundays certainly provide important caregiving resources for Christians. But how well do the prayers themselves function? It seems that close to zero churches and denominations have inquired of those being prayed for as to how many of them found relief, love, healing, renewal, or other benefits from these millions of prayers that are being offered just in the United States. How would a project be organized to determine if these prayers had any effect, or which ones did have an effect, on most of those being prayed for? Perhaps certain prayer forms, Pentecostal style, silent prayers, hand-holding prayers, perhaps some of these may be have the best measurable effect. We don't know. We haven't asked people. Surely our leaders and those who are prayed for would like to know. That would be a great project to manage. 40 Days to Excellence in Church Management by Don Carter would be a good place to start when developing a project on this or in any area of God's work. But get enough copies so that you all are literally on the same page. Gracious Father of light, our hearts are filled with desire to be effective servants of your will. Help us to break through our fog of disorganization and be the good servants that you deserve. Amen. Serve then. Be the King's right arm.